when you're tapping into freelancers, if you're limiting it to just quick projects here and there, things you want to get off your plate, you're maybe not getting the full benefit of it.
I don't think people realize just how much we use our own product for the growth of Contra.
Since starting Contra, we've spent a couple $1 million on freelance talent on Contra, building the brand for Contra. It came really naturally because it spoke so personally to me and the problems that I was seeing as a freelancer.
If AI can make the skills you do today obsolete, that's still not going to create the competitive edge that you're going to need to cut through the noise in the creative world or in the marketing world or whatever. Like, there's still going to need to be some level of human curation.
I'm having a lot of fun trying out new tools, don't get me wrong, but you can really tell the difference when somebody has a true perspective and a strategy and a voice behind the work that they're doing, no matter what tool they're using.
Welcome to Creator Tools episode 4. This is a very special one because today we have our very own Erin Horner, who's the head of creative at Contra. A lot of you have seen her on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Erin's responsible for all the cool stuff we've done with our brand since day one. It's crazy. I met Erin maybe almost 6 years ago, I think. Is that right? Like 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's wild.
2019.
I think you first called me at the end of 2018.
It's 2018.
Yeah.
And I was like, just kind of having the initial ideas for like what Contra could be. And I was working with, I think one of your friends, I think his name was Nate, right? Nate Moser.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? And he was a referral from another one of your friends, Brandon Ward, who you had worked with together at Red Antler. Anyway, I talked to Erin. I'm like, hey, I heard you're the best. I had gotten crazy recommendations from both Nate and Brandon. They're like, you have to work with Erin, but she's always booked. I was like, oh crap. I was like, hopefully you will have room for me. I reach out to Erin. Erin's like, I'm fully booked right now, but in 2 months, in January of 2019, you were available. And I was like, you know what, whatever, let's do it. Let's lock it in. And I have to say, that's probably the best decision. It has to be one of the best decisions that I think I've personally ever made in my journey at Contra, because we've been working together ever since. Erin's responsible for our initial brand guidelines, our brand voice, our logo. It's crazy. I was interviewing someone this week about Contra and talking about the brand. And it's funny, they said, Contra feels like that friend who has your back. And that was in your initial brand exploration whenever you were first putting together the brand for Contra. So it's crazy. I'm so glad we're doing this. Welcome to Creator Tools, Erin.
Thank you, Ben. It's good to be here. Oh my gosh. The friend that has your back. I love that so much.
So I'd love to dive into like your background, your story, how you became the creative leader you are today, because a lot of people don't know this, but you were a freelancer, you were in the agency world, you've worked at a bunch of different companies, you've done a bunch of different projects. So I'd love to hear it from you.
So I started my career as an art director at Target, and then I moved agency side. So that's when I moved to New York and was working at Huge and Red Antler. And that's where I had met a lot of those people that you had mentioned that had ended up connecting us. And then after that, I went independent. So I was freelancing when we first met, like you mentioned. And when I was freelancing, I was just working with a lot of different startups, building their brands, doing digital work for them, helping bring digital products to life. And in my freelance days, I also worked with a team of other freelancers embedded within Google. I also taught some undergrad students at the School of Visual Arts in New York for a bit. And then, that kind of leads us into Contra's origin story and how we met too, which you touched on. But I've been working with you on Contra from day one for about 5 years now, which is pretty wild. First started with the brand and identity work that we did together, led into some product design stuff. These days, I lead a team doing brand and creative work, sort of coming full circle to some of the stuff that we originally worked on with together in our freelance scope for Contra. And it's just really turned into a passion project for me. I am super proud of what we've been able to build and grow with Contra and just the ways we've been able to elevate independence and independent work in general.
So cool. I love how broad your experience has been. And I think if I remember back, Red Antler was very famous for pioneering these really crispy, super sleek, direct-to-consumer brands in e-commerce. I think some of the original brands like Casper, I think Allbirds, all of these different brands that kind of came out of New York, that came out of Red Antler. What was it like to be a part of that, to kind of see the initial I don't know, I felt like all of a sudden people realized that like, hey, like we can build these direct to consumer brands, these e-commerce brands, but they have to be brand first. Like you were part of that wave. Like what was it like to be like on ground zero during that shift?
I credit so much of my career trajectory to Red Antler. I think I've learned so much from that team about how to, lead from strategy, how to lead from vision, and how important brand is in all aspects of how a product comes to life. In particular at Red Antler, I was working on digital work and how that brand comes to life through digital touch points. Every client that came through Red Antler had digital touch points, right? You can think about any app, any website, there's a direct to consumer e-com work. All of that has digital touch points, and how that brand comes to life through the strategy, through the voice, through the creative direction is super important for those touch points, because that's really, for a lot of people, that's where they first are introduced to the brand. And yeah, I learned, definitely got a crash course in how to grow a startup brand in particular. And I learned so much from them. I give them so much credit.
It clearly had a huge impact on you and your ability to kind of like set a vision, set a brand voice, like set the visuals. I remember when we were first exploring the Contra brand, I think the first version of like the logo you came to me with, I was like, holy shit, like this is it. This is so good. And you had the sketches, you had the entire kind of like story around like how these arrows show that you're going places, but they all come together into this like logo mark that shows like this idea of connection, this idea of togetherness. It's like you might be an independent, but you're not alone. Like this whole concept with Contra was so powerful. And I remember you just nailed it out the gate, and I was so blown away. But I think you were also kind of surprised because you're like, wait, you this is like version 1, like this is good. Like, what is it like to like basically work in the agency world where there's constant feedback cycles and like you have to revise this, you have to revise that, to going into the startup world where it's like, no, like this is great, let's just keep running with it. Like, what was that difference? Like, what was that like for you, I guess?
I think you were a unique client, to be fair. You pretty much gave me no notes from the start and kind of just let me do my thing. And that was really, really fun to be able to work on together. But I think that in particular, building the brand for Contra, it came really naturally because it spoke so personally to me and the problems that I was seeing as a freelancer. I wanted to, I saw this as a huge new way of life of freelancing. It unlocked things for me personally that empowered me to, really question the norms of working, right? Of the 9-to-5, of the career ladder. And I was able to, for the first time, really feel like I was in charge and I was driving my own path forward and how I spent my time and all of that. And so to be able to build a platform with you from the start and a brand, a vision that really centered around that and elevated freelancing in a way that I don't think other platforms were doing at the time, saw it as not a race to the bottom or, quick gig work, but really saw it as like freelancers are superheroes. Like they're doing incredible things, and to be able to put a voice to that, put a vision to that was so much fun. And yeah, it's pretty wild to think that we like nailed it on the first time, but and to see that brand still is what we're using, like you said, 5 years later. In feedback cycles and working through feedback cycles, to go back to your original question, the work that we do as creatives, as designers, it's always iterative. You're always learning. And especially in a startup environment, you're getting feedback from your users all the time. And I think getting that feedback, incorporating it into the product, is into the brand, into the voice, being mindful of the ways in which people are perceiving what you're saying, because sometimes what you want to say doesn't always come across at first. And so you iterate and you learn and you continue to improve. And I think that's one of the things I love so much about working in a startup world versus the agency world. Don't get me wrong, there's absolutely value in working agency side and getting to work on so quickly such a broad range of different projects and clients and things like that. But one thing I found really fun about working startup side versus agency side is that with startups, you do get that longer term feedback loop with your users, and you are able to really get a sense from the community of people that you're working with that your product is for. You get that feedback loop with them, and you're able to iterate and learn and grow in a way that oftentimes when you're working on the agency side, you're sort of removed from that because you're then on to the next project.
Yeah. I mean, I had such a fun time meeting up with you. What was that cafe we used to meet at in the Lower East Side? I can't remember what it was called.
I don't remember what it was called either, but it was a movie theater, and we just met in the bar of the movie theater.
So random. I think so. Anyway, Erin and I would meet at this cafe in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and it was like a movie theater. And I think sometimes we'd have a beer, sometimes we would just have whatever, like some tea or coffee or whatever. And I remember when we were doing the initial kind of I guess brand exploration, the competitive research showed that every single platform, every single product that was in our space was talking to the other side of the network, the other side of the marketplace. Everyone was talking to the client side because they had these business models that basically said hey, you spend money on our platform and we're going to take a cut of that from the independent side. So they cared about the person spending the money. And I remember we had this aha moment together. We were like, hey, what if we focused on the independent side? What if we focused on the side that is maybe underrepresented in the market right now? And I think that was a huge moment for us. So many people come to me and ask hey, when should I think about brand? And I'm thinking day one, day zero, you should think about the brand from the very beginning. But I'm curious, as someone who set the vision for our brand at Contra, what advice would you give to other people who are trying to start a movement? They're trying to start a product or a company or a startup or a brand or whatever it is. What advice would you have to people who want to build a brand but just don't know how to think about it?
Well, like you said, I think competitive analysis was something that was really important for building out Contra too. And a lot of startups, I think, like to think of themselves as a one of one. But the reality is there are others in the marketplace who have tried something similar. It's 2024. There's lots of ideas out that have been out there by now. And so even if it's not a one-to-one, of looking at competitors, of seeing what they've done, their angles they've taken towards it, and then coming with your unique perspective, what makes you different truly, and how can you not only say that in your brand persona, right? Your brand voice, but how can you also bring that to life in the core of the product? And I think that's one of the things that I loved about what we were building from the start is it was all genuine, right? Everything that we were saying from a brand perspective, everything that we were building into the strategy was truly an extension of the vision behind the product that was being built. And it's not smoke and mirrors, it's genuine. And I do think that's the stuff that's going to stand the test of time. When you look at 5 years later, we look at back to the strategy deck, we're still saying those same things, those same claims that we were saying 5 years ago. That hasn't changed. And we're constantly having conversations about adding new product features as we grow, as we look to monetize too. And we're constantly bringing ourselves back. I mean, just this week, we had a conversation about bringing ourselves back to those core values. And I think when you can really get a founding team, a leadership team rallied around those core values that truly are core to not just the brand, but the product that you're building, the vision, the mission. If you can really get everyone aligned on that from the start, that can stand the test of time. And yeah, I mean, we didn't have it all figured out from the start by any means, but we definitely laid a solid foundation that allowed us to really come back to that as a reminder years and years in the future of what it is that we're building and why.
I love it. I think it's so important to start with brand first. So many people want to test and iterate, and they have these different ideas for products. And I think sometimes that can work, but I think it's so much easier and it's so much more inspiring to continue to create persistence with an idea, with a vision, if you have that core set of values from the very beginning. And that could be from an aesthetic point of view. It could be from a brand voice point of view. It could be your mission and your core values from a product or a business model point of view. But you just have to have something. You have to have a foundation that a team can rally around and that a user base can rally around. Because in the beginning, our product was very sparse. Like we did not have a lot. And we basically launched a product with the original Contra brand. Then we had to rebuild it from scratch. Like whenever guys joined the team and we had to recruit an internal team for the first time, like we had to start over. But like that brand carried us through that like very, very hard time. Because remember, we had a product we had launched in 2020 and we're like, this is great. We have users. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, we have to pause, restart, like rebuild everything from scratch. And the brand really carried us. That allowed us to like kind of get through those super hard times. And so, you know, for anyone who's thinking about starting, you know, a new company or a new mission or a new brand or a new product, whatever it is, like my opinion is you have to start with brand first. You have to get that right because the products can change, the features can change, like, you know, the positioning can change, but like having that central core set of, whether it's like brand principles, values, like mission values, I think it just makes everything so much easier. And I'm very grateful that I could do that with you, Erin. Not everyone is that lucky. I think actually one of my friends, Luba, reached out. She's like, hey, like, can I work with Erin? And I was like, I don't know. I was like,
yeah, she messaged me on Contra.
DM on Contra. I was like, see what she says.
Yeah, she messaged me on Contra. We sent her some referrals of others she can hire on Contra for sure. Yeah, I mean, I really, that's one of the things I really appreciate in working with you is you've, as a founder, you've always heroized the brand and pushed brand first. And that puts pressure on me, don't get me wrong, but it's also really fun and reminds me that of what I'm doing and why I'm here and the importance of it. And the pressure is a good thing because it allows us to continue to push things further and to be reminded that this is why we're doing it. We're coming back to the core of the brand voice and the brand messaging.
100%. So, all right, I know you're clearly still in demand from, you know, everyone in the world. Everyone wants to work with Erin. So being the trendsetter that you are, given like how talented you are, I think everyone wants to know, like, what trends are you seeing in the creative world? I think we're seeing so many changes across tooling, across like creative trends. From your perspective, like, where do you see the creative world going and like, what's getting you most excited?
Well, this is appropriate to talk about on the Creator Tools podcast, but the tools that we are using are changing so fast. The tools I use every day are completely different from the tools I used just a year ago. Lately, my stack I always have open is Framer, Figma, Screen Studio. Lately, I am using that multiple times a day. CapCut, a bunch of different AI tools, of course, like ChatGPT, Magnific, Midjourney, Canva. Canva's AI tools are actually really good too. And in another year, I'm sure these are all going to be different again, right? But staying flexible, I think, is what's really key here because these trends are changing so fast. The tools that we're using are changing so fast, and we'll always be improving and iterating on the tools that we use. So they're constantly going to be changing. That's just human nature. If you think of like the first tools that we used, we've always iterated on those. And it's just fun to be trying out new tools all the time. Like I was just this week, I got early access to Butter and was trying to use that for some of our social assets, some of our videos. They have a whole template library of different social assets, social videos that you can create, which was just really fun to play with and gave new inspiration of different approaches we could use for social assets. But the work that you're going to create with those tools it's truly only as good as your vision, your strategy, and your persistence for quality there. It's not going to do the work for you, is my perspective. It's truly just that, a tool, and it's fun to play with new ones. It keeps it fresh. And, you know, I've been having a lot of fun playing with video tools lately. It's been a new avenue for me to explore, especially the AI video creation tools. And yeah, it's just fun to figure out the new stacks you can do on top, the different tools, how they can stack on top of each other, and how you can take, you know, an image asset here, a video asset there, edit it together, add in some AI audio on top of that too. Like, it's just fun.
It's so cool. And I think, yeah, like the tools, they're clearly changing. The skills that are required for creativity are clearly changing. But what do you think are the things that won't change for creatives and creative leaders?
I think the things that won't change is that ultimately you still need to have a strategy and a vision behind what the work that you're doing. You still need to push for quality over and over again. You still have to have that eye for craft, that eye for your design. And ultimately it comes back to what we were saying from the start, is that it's all about the strategy and the core reasoning behind it, right? And again, to go back to your question before, this is one of the things that I learned when working with the incredible team at Red Antler too, is without a strategy, it's just beautiful and that falls flat. You really need a core strategy behind it to power the work, to power the vision. And I don't think that's going to change. I think that as creators, as creative directors, as designers, like ultimately it comes down to your strategy, your vision, your persistence for quality, all those things that's not going to change. You're going to continue to try new tools, and that's fun. Try them out. Maybe it'll give you new inspiration. And I'm having a lot of fun trying out new tools. But I think that, you can really tell the difference when somebody has a true perspective and a strategy and a voice behind the work that they're doing, no matter what tool they're using.
It's so true. I feel like there's so much like fear and uncertainty around like, oh, is AI going to take my job as a creative? And it's like, probably not. I think that taste, direction, curation, all of those things are going to continue to be important. And like the quality bar is just like a moving target, right? When we first started Contra, what was really good is maybe no longer good now. And now what's considered like really good might not be good in 6 months. And I think that like it's a moving target. So you have to stay cutting edge. You have to find your edge as a brand, in my opinion. And then the tools are only like a means to get there. Like if everyone's using the same like AI tool to create the same type of AI looking asset, that immediately becomes noisy. And then it's really hard to cut through the noise there. I think you always have to find your edge, and that really comes from strategy and taste, to your point.
To quote one of the engineers on the Contra team, Jared, he had said recently that he doesn't think AI is going to take his job, but he's willing to give it part of his job. And I think that's a really great way of saying that ultimately I'll give AI parts of my job. That's great. Like AI can do a better job at a lot of different things, but I don't think AI is going to entirely take my job away. But if it does, then we move on and we do something new. And there's lots of other fun stuff to be working on too.
100%. And I think like people are so worried that like the skills that AI replaces today are like the core skills that they'll always need. But I think, if AI can make the skills you do today obsolete, that's still not going to create the competitive edge that you're going to need to cut through the noise in the creative world or in the marketing world or whatever. Like there's still going to need to be some level of human curation. And so just because like now like AI can replicate a bunch of different icon styles, that's probably nice. You probably don't want to just like manually have to like go through like create one icon after another. It might actually be nice to get rid of some of those tasks to be able to focus on more strategy, more of the creative vision, and kind of like think about what comes next. Typically when things become more efficient, demand actually increases. So I think there's going to be demand for creativity, and the demand for taste is going to explode over the next 5 years. And so I'm not too worried about it, especially for people like Jared. Oh my God.
No, he's wildly talented. Yeah.
Cool. So I'm curious, like, given that we're seeing kind of this like new demand for all these new skills, like you mentioned like Framer, you mentioned like Screen Studio, you mentioned like Midjourney, Magnific, even Canva, like, that requires like a broad set of skills, a broad set of expertise. Like, how do you see the future makeup of creative teams, and how do we do it here internally at Contra?
Well, you know this, but I hire a lot of freelancers at Contra. At Contra, we truly built this platform for our own use case, right? And I see a lot of forward-thinking teams, not just creative teams, but any sort of forward-thinking team, agencies, startups, enterprise companies, you name it, as truly benefiting from adopting this flexible talent strategy of tapping into freelance experts regularly. And I guess my hot take on this is that I think truly when you're tapping into freelancers, if you're limiting it to just quick projects here and there, things you want to get off your plate, you're maybe not getting the full benefit of it. I see the biggest benefit in working with freelancers on big projects and on an ongoing basis, because truly you're able to tap into incredible experts. Like, these freelancers are next level, incredible talent. And I'm learning so much in working with these freelancers, right? On an ongoing basis, I'm able to tap into talent that knows more about different areas and expertise than I do. And so it allows our core team to stay more generalists, right? Like, I'm still able to do a lot of different things and be an IC and not get so hung up on a lot of management tasks too, but also learn from these incredible, talented designers who are really experts in what they're doing. And like you said, with tools in particular, the tools are changing. The tools we use are changing so fast that sometimes I'm not the expert on that brand new tool, but there is somebody else that is, and I can tap into working with them, collaborating with them, learning from them on a regular basis. And one of the things we do at Contra is we really treat them as an embedded part of our team, right? An extension of our team. So we invite them to Slack, we chat with them on a regular basis, and it just brings so much new inspiration to the team. It brings just a new level of just learning and growing to the team that is, I truly couldn't do my job without being able to tap into freelancers on a regular basis. I hire a lot of freelancers.
I think it's such a competitive advantage for us as well, because there's like so many skills that, like, if you want to have that edge, you need to have access to. For example, like learning Screen Studio, like, for example, like 2D animation, all the different things that we're doing with our product launch videos. Like, it would take us like years to be like even 20, 30% as competent as some of the people we work with. But being able to tap into that expertise and like really create these long-term relationships, but it's like on a project-to-project basis. Like, I think that's been one of our biggest competitive advantages from our marketing and our branding side. I think more teams might see the benefits here, but I'm curious, like, what's an example of like one of your favorite projects that you've worked on, and like, who were the independents and what were the skills that they were bringing to the table?
Some of my favorite projects that we work on are, like I said, some of the ongoing basis projects, because you're really able to get to know these freelancers on another level. You're not just tapping in and out of talent. You are working with them on an ongoing basis and truly learning from them. But I did ask this question on social of what people want to know about how Contra uses Contra, and let's break it down. Some of the things people want to know are the freelance roles that we hire, what roles, how we structure our project, and then the annual spend. Ben, are you comfortable with this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's do it. Okay, so right now we have about 30 different Contra team members that are hiring independents on Contra. So we all share our resources together. We have visibility into all the projects that you're doing. So, for example, if you're hiring a freelancer for something and I want to know, hey, I really like the work that they're doing, I want to tap into them too. What's your scope of work? I can go straight into Contra, check that out, see how you're working with that independent, and then see if we could expand that scope, add an additional one-off invoice, or I could just start my own project with them, right? So like I mentioned, on the ongoing basis, on a regular basis, we hire a lot of different freelancers. I'll speak from the creative perspective. The Contra creative team hires freelancers for brand and product design, for framer developers. You know, I love my framer developers. I've got quite a few that I work with on a regular basis, literally every day. Video editors, again, an everyday thing. UGC content creators, blog writers, growth marketers, again, people who are truly experts at what they do. And so it allows me to take a little bit more of a generalist role and tap into these experts that really know what they're doing in these different roles. So for these ongoing projects, we typically scope out, a max number of hours per week. We have a list of tasks that we accomplish. Like I said, we embed them into our Slack. We embed them into our team. All of our team members also have access to chat with them, provide feedback. Really believe feedback is a gift, and sometimes the best feedback can come from somebody who's working on something totally different at Contra and just has an eye or a point of view about some of the work that's going on. So we really keep it a very open, collaborative environment. And yeah, we just see them as an extension as our team. So this allows our team to really focus on the strategy, be generalists in our skill sets, and then we just benefit from hiring these freelancers who are incredible experts at what they do. Some of the most fun projects too in Contra's history, like for example, our big one-off campaigns like our Creator Tools Awards, which is a campaign we ran earlier this year that led to the creation of this podcast. For that one in particular, we hired a brand designer who crafted the initial brand for Creator Tools. We hired a web designer who created the site that announced the awards, a framer developer to help build it, and then a production designer to help with all of the different assets. I know we also worked with Dan Petty, who was our first podcast guest on the Creator Tools podcast, and a video editor too. So that's kind of what the freelance team looked like for that project. But we've done similar campaigns for like our Contra for Companies release, where we've done a bigger launch video for the brand. And sometimes we'll bring in agencies too, in addition to freelancers, for big projects like the State of Independence report and our hiring calculator that we recently launched this year too. And so those projects, those bigger projects, they can range from 3 to 6 month projects. And those have a much more tight deliverable timeline than our ongoing projects, but both are incredibly valuable for the work that we're doing, and both tap into like wildly talented experts and I mean, truly superheroes. Like we could not run Contra without being able to tap into these freelancers and agencies.
I don't think people realize just how much we use our own product for the growth of Contra. Like Contra users design parts of our product, they design parts of our brand, they build out our marketing functions. So like what is the scale of our collaboration with our user base? Like how much have we actually spent hiring Contra users?
So since starting Contra, we've spent a couple $1 million on freelance talent on Contra across thousands of different projects and hundreds of different freelancers. And I really think that the real magic happens when you stop feeling limited by your full-time team's capabilities. There's always going to be push and pull of capacity and priorities at agencies, at enterprise companies, at startups. That's a constant across any type of work environment, right? But it's a huge unlock when you realize you can start tapping into freelance talent and realize how much more is possible. You can tap into incredible experts who are amazing at what they do. It can not only allow you to expand capabilities, but you can level up your own team too. Everybody's learning and inspired by each other. And when you can broaden that sense of thinking beyond just your full-time employees and think about it as this larger talent pool that you have access to, that's the biggest unlock and something I'll never go back on. I will always be working with freelancers. I know that.
Yeah, it's really changed the game for us. And I think the coolest part is that like we're building this platform that enables us to work in this way. And so just testing the product ourselves has allowed us to build such a better product for our customers. And we're seeing more and more companies adopt this mindset. And so I'm excited to see what comes next in the creative world. So that being said, in your opinion, what is coming next? Where do you see the makeup of creative teams? How do you see, I don't know, where do you see the Contra brand going? I know it's vague, but you're the visionary who said our original brand. Where do you see it evolving to?
So like I said before, the heart of the Contra team has always been about elevating independent work. So many of our team members, so many of the people building Contra have been freelancers in the past, have worked with freelancers in the past, have some incredible skill sets outside of work. You do a lot of audio engineering too. There's a lot of different wildly talented people on the team, right? And we've always been about elevating independence, independent work, this sort of new way of thinking about taking charge of your own career. We really see freelancers as superheroes. I said this many times throughout this podcast, but they are. And, they're just breaking the mold of these conventional constraints of work, the 9-to-5, that linear career path. They're just doing what they're best at on their own terms. That's something that really should be celebrated. And Contra is here for it. We are going to celebrate that. So the companies that I've been most impressed with lately are the ones that realize that they can tap into this incredible talent pool, these superheroes, in a way that massively unlocks their business. They're thinking beyond just the full-time employees. They're thinking broad, and they're thinking about the incredible talent pool that's out there. And honestly, sometimes the best talent isn't within your company. Sometimes the best talent is out starting their own company, doing their own thing, starting their own business, being independent entrepreneurs. And when you tap into freelancers, you can tap into that quality of talent. Not in a way that's a race to the bottom, not in a way that's a quick gig or just hire the cheapest person for the task or pinning talent against each other, but in a way that really appreciates these experts and the value that they're bringing to your team and sees them as an extension, a key extension of your team. So I'm really inspired by that. I know you talked about previously that when we first started Contra, we saw a lot of other companies speaking to the clients, speaking to the companies that are hiring freelancers, that are hiring independents. And we wanted to speak directly to those independents. We wanted to speak to the freelancers. I think we've gone on an interesting journey with Contra where we're now coming back around and we're actually seeing the value in speaking to the companies, the agencies, the client, the startups, the clients in a way that that brings it full circle, that elevates the independence, that heroizes the independence, that conveys the value that they're bringing to the table and tells that full, complete story to the clients too. So I'm really excited to see companies that are adopting that strategy, that are open to that mindset. And I see it more and more lately. You know, there's a lot of companies that are really excited about rethinking a flexible talent strategy. And that's really exciting to see. So I think that's what's next for Contra. You know, we're just continuing to grow. We're 5 years in building this together, but we're really just getting started. So I'm just excited to see how far we can take this, where we can scale this to, and but also still staying true to that original strategy, that voice, that mission that we've always leaned on.
So well said. Wow. I don't even know how to follow that, but I think that's a wrap. Erin, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure a lot of people have always wanted to know how Contra uses Contra, and I think they got a deeper look into what actually happens behind the scenes. So once again, this is the Creator Tools Show. And yeah, thanks again, Erin, for coming on.
Thank you, Ben.